to go.
Picking a dram up off the floor.
It's literally what I was doing.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome along to another Blether with. You just caught Kat halfway through a sip of tea there. We'll be pouring something a little bit stronger later on, I'm sure. I've already got the YouTubers on there watching. Good evening, Russell. Russell Bricklow's watching tonight.
Hello, Russell.
I recognise that name from somewhere. That rings a bell. We've got Dave Patterson as well. The Russell, I'd say he was the Hop of the North. Good evening, guys. Welcome along to another Blether with. Great to have you along. What's in the glass, Kat? From tea?
Well, I'm a bit disorganized tonight, and I couldn't find anything on brand because, like, you know, I went into my extensive whiskey cellar there and realized I didn't have anything on brand. So I just took out something that I've been meaning to open for ages, which is just my Cabochon, which I've had sitting and waiting to open for ages and ages. So I thought, well, I'll just open that one because it sounds amazing.
Nice.
What you got?
The Devon 12.
Cool.
It's one of our guests' distilleries tonight, from the core range, and fairly local as well. Devon coming from Macduff, the Macduff distillery. So it's a lovely little drop. We had a group of Germans not too long ago doing a tasting, and we did Aberdeenshire drams, and this was a standout for them. So it appeals to the Germans, this dram. So if you're German and you're watching,
well, I bought Prost. I bought a bottle of Royal Bracla, but it didn't arrive. So
good. You're also buying from the wrong shop.
I should have bought it from the Inverie. I know, I should have bought from the Inverie whiskey shop. It was a last minute purchase because it was like on special offer for Black Friday. I was like, yes. But no, it didn't arrive. So I'm not on brand tonight. I don't know. I think it's just like a sort of...
Let's get our guest on because you guys are not here to listen to us having on about Black Friday and late shops.
Even nonsense.
Let's bring Stephanie on. There we are. Hello, Stephanie. How are you?
Hello. How are you both?
Hello.
Very, very well, thank you. How are you?
We're so excited to have you.
Yeah, apologies in advance. My Wi-Fi is a bit dodgy tonight, so I'm hoping that you can hear me and I'm not frozen at the moment.
Nope, you're coming through loud and clear. So
great.
Yeah.
So it's a
I'll make a
pleasure to
change
be
for me
here.
because usually it's my internet that.
Kat's secretly hoping that you cut out Stephanie so she can say it's not me.
Not my internet. Always my internet. I was doing an exam last night online and the internet cut out twice mid-exam. I'm like, oh my God. So like hopefully it's like, I don't know. I'm sure I won't fail because my internet's rubbish. I don't think they can fail me on that, but
yeah.
So
your internet might fail, but you won't, I'm sure.
Yeah. Was it your WSETs that you're doing?
Yeah. So it was part 2 last night and like halfway through. I think it's because my kids are all on the Wi-Fi. So like I'm literally like, right, only 2 of you are allowed Wi-Fi tonight. So they better not be plugged into anything else.
Yeah, I've warned my kids as well. No TikToking tonight.
No TikToking.
I don't even know where to start on TikTok. It's
no,
many of these things. Yeah. What happened to Bebo? Bring back Bebo. That was that's all I needed when I was a kid.
You're showing your age there now.
Right. So yeah, it's kind of said. Thank you so much. We're really excited to have you on. 5 times in a row, Master Blender of the Year.
Yeah.
How cool is that? That is something to be pretty smug about.
Yeah. Actually, when the email came through this year, I actually thought I was reading last year's email I thought I can't have won it again. I was like, no, I have 5 times. Couldn't believe it.
Never been done before
so
5
That's
times.
amazing.
Yeah. So I mean, it's incredible. I mean, it's always, it's always my name that's beside it, but it really truly is a team effort, because I don't, fill the barrels. I don't, empty them again and put all the actual blends physically together. And, if everybody wasn't doing their job, then we wouldn't be able to produce these award-winning blends. So it really is a team effort. And it's not just the team at the moment, it's, all the people that have gone before that distilled the spirit and put it into the casks. And so it's like I'm the last runner in a relay race that wins a race, and I get all the, the photos and, but if everyone at the back of me hadn't done their job, then I wouldn't be there. So, but it's great. I mean, I don't blend whiskey for awards, but getting an award is it's a really special cherry on top of the cake, I must say.
Yeah, absolutely. And congratulations again.
Thank you.
You've got a team, but is it five distilleries you have?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you work on each one, or are you part of the Dewars blend itself? Or what's the kind of data like for yourself?
So me and my team, we work across the blends and the malts. So, it used to be that the blends were the biggest part of our job. But now, the malts are becoming big as well. And so that's why my team has expanded in order to keep up with the demand, because we've not only got, the 5 malts, the 5 core malts, we've also got the exceptional casks. And that's Aberfeldy, Royal Brackla, Craigellachie and Altmore, and a little bit of Glendevron. So exceptional casks are a mixture of single casks and finishes, which we call the double casks. And so those take up a lot of time, because we call them exceptional casks, and we need to make sure that they are indeed exceptional. So we do a lot of sampling, a lot of assessing, and we really do. We try to, when we're finishing anything, we try to assess on a monthly basis, and that's a lot of work for the guys in the warehouses to get all the samples out and ready for us. So it really is a big hats off to them. You always dread when we have the sample list. I think, oh, their faces are going to fall when they see this list, but but they always do it with a smile, usually. Yeah, so we're really busy. So we're we've got the double region. Sorry.
No,
sorry, Kat, you're going to ask me a question.
There's a slight delay, so like you'd stopped and I started. No, I was going to say, how big is your actual team that you're in charge of then? If you're getting all these samples, you must have surely it's not just you with a massive lineup.
Gosh, definitely not. So I've got 3 blenders. Got Keith Geddes, who's been with us for quite a while. He had a little sabbatical with another company. He came back to us. I've got Rhiann Ferguson, who's on mat leave just now, so she's doing a really difficult sabbatical at the moment, probably the hardest one of her life. And I've got Anija Cherian, and she actually has joined us from India, Bacardi India, and it was her wish to work with whiskey. She's always wanted to do it, and so she left her friends and her family to pursue this dream of working with Scotch whiskey. And for her interview, we actually did a remote blind tasting. So I sent her the box of samples and she unboxed them in front of me, and she just about nailed every single one of them. So she's got a great palate.
That's impressive.
And then we've got Kirsty Pender, who's stepping up into the assistant blender role for the duration of Rianne's mat leave. So it's really great when we have maternity leave or any kind of sabbatical, because then people within the team can step up into roles that they maybe thought they wouldn't be doing for quite a while, or indeed if at all. So it's a really nice way of ensuring that the whole team have got, you know, the necessary skills for all the work that's coming our way in whiskey. So for the exceptional casks, we basically all get together and wade our way through all the samples that we have to, and we try to do it at the same time, because if we all do it at different times, you can't then question what someone means when they're, talking about a particular flavour. So it's good to get that clarity when you're all together. And usually there's a consensus of when we like something and when we don't like something, but sometimes there's ones that just can't quite agree on. So, if we can't agree on it, we'll leave it and we'll come back, and then usually we'll gain a consensus. Because I think sometimes if you nose too many samples, your senses do get tired, and everybody sort of looks at us enviously when they say, "Well, we've got to do all these samples today," and my husband, for one, would jump at the chance to just nose whiskey all day. I think he thinks I drink it as well. I think he thinks that's my job, to sit and drink whiskey all day, and I do have to point out that it's not. I think he thinks I
not go home at night and just say, I was under the desk. I was passed out.
Yeah. I think he thinks I sit in a leather winged back chair beside a roaring fire with a Labrador, resting its head in my knee. I'm drinking a fine dram out of a crystal glass. But it's not like that.
How do we get that job?
So, yeah.
I know. I'm applying if that comes up, I tell you.
So that's not what you do then. That's not it. That's
not.
Yeah.
It's not.
The videos lie, don't they? I think that's what guys like. That's Richard Patterson. He does that, doesn't he? That's his job.
Yeah. He's the only one that gets to do that.
Yeah.
He'll kill me if he hears me saying that.
The role of master blender must not come up very often, though. It's like obviously maybe like the thing when somebody retires. It's not something you see just in the back of like your local paper. Master blender wanted, bring your own Labrador.
Yeah. No, I mean it really it doesn't come up that often, and it is I hate to use it, this dead men's shoes. It's usually when someone's retiring, but there is more movement now in the whiskey industry. Before years ago, I've obviously my predecessor retired, and so that's and I was training for about 3 years before he did retire. But nowadays people will tend to maybe move around the whiskey industry as blenders, and so there is a bit more movement within the industry now. It was kind of unheard of really for blenders to move about 10-20 years ago probably, but now there is a bit more fluidity and a bit more of a chance to take up a role. But when we're recruiting into the blending team, everyone that comes in has to go through a sensory assessment, just to make sure that everything is as you would expect. And we're not expecting perfection, but we are looking for someone that's definitely not got any problems. Let's put it that way. That they're not anosmic to anything, because it's obviously a big part of what we do is ensuring that. I mean, what we're always looking out for whenever we're assessing a whiskey is we're looking out for defects in the whiskey. And so when we're assessing whiskey, we take right down to 20 to 23%, and then this then allows anything untowards to come to the fore. Because if you know everything neat, then it tends to hide any defects. So we want to bring them out before it goes in a bottle. We don't want to find out about it afterwards. That's just disaster for us. Especially when we're dealing with things like different types of finishes. It's really important that we, because casks can do strange things. You think a cask, and then it does something that you're not expecting. So it's really important that, especially when we're doing small batches, that we're nosing each and every cask and then doing pilot blends before we actually do the full blend, so that we know exactly what we're going to be getting, and that we're happy with it. And especially an exceptional cask, we really need it to be exceptional.
What's the most common sort of, oh sorry, I was gonna say, what's the most common sort of off notes you get? Is it things like sulfur and stuff? Is that like your kind of more common ones? Or
yeah, sulfury is one that we look out for, especially in sherry casks. But you never really know what, sometimes there's a kind of an intense fruity note, that kind of gala melon kind of note, that we sometimes can find in wine casks and sherry casks as well. So that we find that at the actual empty cask stage. So when we detect those kind of notes, we generally fill it with water and then empty it again, and that generally helps the situation. But we'll sometimes mark on the cask, fill but check. So that means that we've got then a note of it on our inventory that particular cask, the jury's out on it, and we want to give that one some special attention. So it takes quite a bit of effort to produce the whiskies that we do. And our Dewars double range, which is our blended Scotch whisky, the cues that you normally see applied to single malts, we apply to this range. So 46%, non-chill filtered, no colour added, and we rely on finishing for the 21, the 27, and the 32. So different styles of sherry for each one, and each expression has its own particular flavour profile. So it's not a kind of cut and paste of the 21-year-old recipe applied to 27, then applied to 32. Each one has its own character, and so that's why it's got its own particular sherry style to go with it. So I think people have been intrigued by that. And it's a 4-stage aging process that we basically came up with one day, talking with our colleagues in the brand team, and that's really how it came about.
Does a lot of expressions come up that way, just when you guys are just chatting and maybe having a bit of? I did think Kat was having a really, really long sip of her cup there.
So did I. It's like, she's enjoying that tea.
Yeah, she'll probably jump back on, as she said, the internet. She's going to take the kids off the computer and then come back on. Yeah, so you guys kind of spitball and brainstorm ideas. I wonder what would happen if we did this, and then you kind of go out and trial it and see if it works.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what we do. I mean, sometimes it's as we're sitting around nosing, samples from casks, and we come across a cask that we think, I wasn't expecting it to do that, and sometimes it will make us think of, well, that there was one, it was an Aberfeldy, and I think it was meant for the 21-year-olds core range, but it was just so different that we just felt it couldn't actually be part of it, but it just for us was Christmas. So we thought, let's not do anything with that. Let's just let it sit in the cask, and then, we'll persuade the brand team to do some sort of Christmas edition coming up. Not this Christmas, but so sometimes we'll just, we'll be inspired by the casks themselves, and then we'll maybe try and wonder if we could replicate that by using a certain style of cask, or so it's sometimes it's just, you're maybe inspired by other products as well, other whiskey making traditions from across the world as well. So there's lots of things that inspire me. A couple of weeks ago I was really lucky. I was up at Blair Castle, and we were tasting the really old whiskey that they found at the back of the shelf.
Yeah. Super. What a privilege.
Oh, it really was a privilege. When they asked me if I could come along, I was like, absolutely. It was a really special day. I had fully expected it not to be good, because it was distilled, they believe, in the 1830s, and I thought, they won't have had any idea about distilling, and what kind of wood would they put it into. But it was true. It really was a lovely whiskey. It was delicious.
What
And
kind
it
of
had a
ABV
really, so it was in the 50s, the ABV. I mean, it was, really, it was a strong, I'm sure it was in the 50s, because I expected it to be sub 40, but no. I mean, it had been really well preserved. It was in bottles, sealed with a cork and a wax seal. But it was really fresh, vibrant, well distilled, well matured, and it just turned everything I thought about whiskey making back then completely on its head. And I think we were all absolutely taken aback by it. And they reckoned that it may have been served to Queen Victoria, so you could kind of feel the hairs in the back of your neck standing up. So that was really exciting, and it just made me think, it'd be great to try and, could you recreate that style? Obviously we don't know how they did it, even where they did it, the distillation, but there was just something about it had a kind of unusual smokiness to it, but I mean, it wasn't in any way overwhelming. It was really delicate but different to anything that you get today. It's just incredible. So that's being auctioned off pretty soon, actually. I mean, I think within days.
I thought it was next week or within the week. But
Yeah. Oh, that's Cat back.
Hello. She just tidied her hair up. I think when your hair is out here, it takes up all the internet. It absorbs the Wi-Fi. When you tie it up, I think that's what helps streamline it.
I think so. I mean, like, I was looking at myself in that little square and I thought, oh my God, like, I need to do something about that. Maybe you could have warned me before I went live. Cat, sort your hair.
We all just thought you were really enjoying that cup of tea because you were sitting with the mug here
It's like
for
a big long.
Well, that's better than some of the frozen faces I've had. Usually it's like that. So yeah, like, I'm in the kitchen now though, so I'm closer to the internet. This is how my brain works. If I'm closer to the little magic internet box, like it should work, is my theory. So hopefully, yeah, hopefully. I mean, I'm in Aberdeenshire. It shouldn't be that bad. Are you based in Perthshire, Stephanie? Or whereabouts?
No,
are you?
I'm in Glasgow.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think there's anywhere really where you get the perfect internet. You know, we've had problems this week with ours. So, but it is always terrifying when you're joining a podcast and you just see the little daisy wheel going round and round. You think, oh no. Here we go again.
We've got some drams around us to keep us entertained if we get cut off.
Exactly.
I've got a pub in Inverurie as well as the shop, and we had a regular guy called Ian swore by Dewars, and that was his favourite. He was born and bred in Stanley, which I think where the name comes. Dewar was from Stanley himself, wasn't he? I think.
It was near there. It was a place called Dull.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
apparently twinned with Boring.
I used to live near Dull. Actually, people used to steal the sign sometimes. They always have to replace it.
I know.
Yeah, so he always bought a bottle for to take down to his brother who still lived in Stanley, and it's amazing. I always thought, so is the blending house now in Glasgow? Is that where you're based, or do they still have that?
Yes. Yeah. So all our blending is done in Glasgow and the surrounding area. That's been the case since about early 2000s.
Okay.
So and I took over as a blender in 2006.
Okay. So you've always been based. Yeah. You've always been Glasgow based then.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, Aberfeldy is probably our closest distillery to Glasgow. It's under 2 hours, and it's also the town where my husband is from. Okay. So people often ask me, what attracted your husband to Master Blender Stephanie MacLeod? Like, he doesn't enjoy a dram.
Yeah.
So we've got we've got Aberfeldy, the Highland one. We've got Royal Brackla, also Highland, Macduff, Highland, and then our two Speysides are Altmore and Craigellachie. So they're both Speysides, but both completely different from one another. As you'll know, Craigellachie, we've got worm tubs there, and we get this kind of muscular style of whiskey. Altmore, just a few miles down the road, doesn't use worm tubs, but we get this really light, ethereal, cereally whiskey coming out of Altmore. And, because people often talk about, the influence of the region. But when you look at those two distilleries, you think, So, I mean, I do try to tell people that we don't really talk about, regions when we're blending. We blend on the flavor profile of the individual malts, rather than we take all the Highlands and we take all the Speysides, because you can get Speysides now that are peaty in character, or they're the classic ones, the fruity notes. So it's one of these common myths about whiskey that, when we're blending, we always look at the region that the whiskey's from, but it's just not the case. And not only do we blend on the flavor profile, but it's also the cask that the whiskey's been filled into as well. So we ensure that not only do we have a recipe with all the different styles of malt whiskies and grain whiskies in them, but also a wood profile that states the percentage of bourbons and sherries and refill woods. So it's kind of like a enormous puzzle that we have to try and put together, because we blend according to the demand from our global markets. We don't wake up and think, oh, a lovely day for blending. It's all based on demand. So we need to ensure that when we're filling our whiskey, that we're doing it in the way that we're going to use it a number of years down the line. But of course, very rarely.
Just woke up one day and think, this is what we're going to make today.
Yeah, it would be quite nice to do that. Quite nice. Yeah. One of these days, I'll get a day when we can just say this is going to be the blenders day, where we can just decide to blend whatever we fancy. I'm going to suggest that.
You should suggest that. You're the master blender. Like, you've got 5 awards.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, see all these awards? We're doing it Stephanie's way today.
Yeah. We'll see.
So is there it's. Oh, sorry, we're all talking again. What were you going to say, Mike?
I was going to ask Stephanie if you had a favourite of the 5 distilleries.
It's like asking me to name my favourite child.
Yeah,
it'd be the one that's not annoying me at the time. But I mean, I know you do expect me to say this. I mean, I think there is a lot of people love to tell me that they don't like whiskey. So that's usually often the first thing that people say to me when I tell them what I do. Oh, I don't like whiskey. But I always challenge them that I believe that there is a whiskey out there for everyone, because there's so many different styles of whiskey. There's so many different ages of whiskey, different cask types, that there is a whiskey out there for everyone and every occasion. And so sometimes it's a kind of Altmore kind of night, because especially Altmore 12, it's just got this lovely, it's green, it's grassy, it's floral, but it's got this lovely sort of almond note to it, which I just love. It just gives it this kind of succulence. And Royal Brackla, we fairly well during COVID, actually we kind of released it, but we kind of revamped the Royal Brackla range. So it used to be 12, 16 and 21, and we swapped the 16 for an 18, and we finished the 12 in Oloroso, the 18 in Palo Catardo, and the 21 in a mixture of Oloroso, Palo Catardo and Pedro Jimenez. And so that's a kind of treat whiskey, that one. Especially the 18-year-old, I just love the kind of citrus notes from the Palo Catardo. And Aberfeldy, you can't really go wrong with Aberfeldy. It's such an approachable whiskey, but also complex as well, and you get all these lovely honey notes and citrus notes and sort of marmalade notes. And Craigellachie, when I first started looking at our malts and I was sampling Craigellachie, and all I was getting was pineapple. And I thought, this can't be right. I said, this is a really kind of sulfury, muscular whiskey. Why am I getting pineapple? And I was actually handing the glass to other people and saying, what do you get from that? And they were saying, oh, pineapple, yeah, it's a banana or something like that. And but yes, it's actually one of our fruitiest or most laden with esters of all of our distilleries. But the notes of sulfur mask the fruitiness of it, and it's only when it's maturing that we then get these really ripe pineapple-y fruity notes that come to the fore. And as it gets older, that gets stronger. And I just adore that about Craigellachie, that it starts off as a new make spirit, being one thing, and then the power of maturation, it turns into this beautiful, succulent giant of a Speyside whiskey. And then we have Macduff, which is bottled under Glendevron for a very long and complicated story, and you've got a bottle of it in your hand there. Very nice. So I love going up to Macduff. It doesn't really look like a whiskey distillery when you see it. It's one of our most modern distilleries, being built in the 1960s. It doesn't have the pagoda. Sorry?
You just had a massive refurb up there, new mash tun, and
yes, yeah. So that was, I think it was quite painful for the guys, but it's looking really great, and we're getting a really good yield coming from it. So it's really going great guns, but it was quite something putting in the new mash tun, but they got there in the end, and it's looking great. And during COVID, the guys did a bit of landscaping as well, so even the surrounding area of the distillery is looking beautiful. So all of the distillery, and Royal Brackley Distillery, I don't know if you've ever been in it, but it's got one of the most tranquil views from a still house that I've probably ever been in. It just looks onto this pond, and the ducks are just bobbing past, and you feel as if you could have a yoga class in that still house.
Yoga and a dram. Now there's an evening event.
I'm sure there's a health and safety thing against that wouldn't be allowed. But yeah, it really is lovely. So yeah, I don't, probably the whiskey of Dewars that is closest to my heart is Dewars 15, because that was the first blend that I ever made. So it was my first big project was to create Dewars 15. So that's the one that I have the most pride in, because that was my first.
Awesome.
And it was quite nerve-wracking. You weren't sure how it would be received, and it is like a child. You nurture it, look after it, and then you worry about it, and is it going to make friends, and so you worry. And when it was being disgorged, it was like a birth almost. So
first day at school kind of thing, when it's all grown up, and you're letting go of its hand, and it's.
I'm glad the NHS don't describe birth as disgorging, though. It's just, we'll get you in for your disgorging date. I want to do it.
I know sometimes we talk about a dumping as well, and I always try not to use that term, because people sort of look at me as if, what on earth are you doing? Yeah. Sorry, I'm just going to plug my phone in. I'm a wee bit low on juice, I've just noticed.
No problem at all.
I'm now a wee bit at the jaunty angle now.
Just talking of the distilleries, Russell on YouTube, he's commented on the huge rebuilds recently. Obviously, we mentioned Macduff there, but also Altmore's going through some changes, and he's asking if there is plans to mature more on site at some of these distilleries, because there's not a lot of maturation on site, is there?
No, there isn't. I mean, and you know, when we bought over the distilleries in 1998, there wasn't any maturation on site then either. Yeah, I think Russell's been reading my mind. Actually, we were talking about that today. Actually, how
as long as you don't start
nice
reading his mind, it's not what you want to be. I love you, Russell.
I think it is really nice to have maturation on site. So, but yes, I've got my eye on a wee spot actually on the distillery. I think a wee warehouse could just fit in nicely there. And I'd love a dunnage warehouse as well.
I heard there's a bit of a problem in the industry just now that there's too many casks and not enough places to put them. Is that like a problem everywhere, or is it just the distilleries that I know?
Storage is always a problem in the industry. You see a lot of warehouses popping up, and you know, people offering out warehouse space. You know, I think it'll always be, you know, whiskey. There's more and more distilleries popping up, and so naturally we're going to have to put them somewhere. You know, we have to put the cask somewhere. So yeah, there's. I don't think I've ever had a year where there hasn't been someone fretting about where on earth am I going to put all these casks. Yeah. I mean, we obviously rely on that we're disgorging, not dumping the casks, so that we're making space for more. And you know, at Dewars, we're always got a plan to build more distilleries. Not more distilleries, more warehouses.
I was going to say groundbreaking news.
More distilleries would be nice as well.
That's one style of whiskey you don't have, is it? Is like a heavy peat or a peated style.
No, so we don't.
Is there peat whiskey in the Dewars blend that you source out from somewhere else? Or?
Yeah, so we have to source that from other distilleries, where you know we'd love to do a little trial ourselves on peat. Obviously, you know, peat is a precious resource, so it would be nice to find another way of getting that smokiness into the whiskey without having to dig for peat, and you know, it's something that Swirry are looking into. But yeah, there is something, you know, obviously people love a peaty whiskey. You know, it's and sometimes, you know, I think it's that's the one that people can really readily detect, and so they think, you know, it's peaty, you know, it's from Ireland, it's, you know, and I do. I mean, I think that was one of my first whiskies, was actually Lagavulin, and I remember just thinking it was like vanilla ice cream and TCP. So I wouldn't use those flavour notes now, but so, you know, I myself, you know, enjoy a peaty whiskey, and you know, you never know. We might do some trials at our distilleries, because you know, it's nice just to try new things, and I think the guys at the distillery as well would like us to do some experiments. Just to see, you know, what else can we do with the flavour profile of our distilleries.
Could it be just something you do like with peated casks? Or Yeah, because a few places are trying peated casks now, aren't they?
Yeah, we've done some work. We've got a brand called Dewars Double Agent, and it's a 16-year-old blended Scotch, and some of the casks we finished in ex-Isla casks and some in sherry, and we got this really nice mixture of the sweetness and then the dryness coming from the sherry, and then that little bit of smoke coming from the Isla, and it's really gone down well. So that's in travel retail, and it's in a really nice pack as well. And people just really seem to appreciate that little burst of smoke at the end. So we're exploring more things like that.
Do you find that regions are becoming less of a thing now? Are they more marketing based than flavor based? Looking at casks and styles rather than regions.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we still talk about Speyside whiskies and Highland whiskies, but as I was saying earlier, Altmore and Craigellachie are both Speysides, but they're completely different styles of whiskies. And I think people are now looking at, the distillery and the cask, and then saying, oh, I like that style from that distillery and I like that style of cask, so I'll probably like that whiskey.
Yeah.
So I think, and I think actually, I think maybe the wine industry may have helped us a bit, because you remember when the wine industry started talking about grape variety, and a Sauvignon Blanc would give a certain flavor profile, and that can be translated into the whiskey industry. A certain distillery will give a particular flavor profile, and then when it's in a certain type of cask, it will give something on top of that again. And we've started, a while ago, working with wine casks, and we did Aberfeldy and Pauillac casks, and Pomerol and Cote Rôtie, or as we were calling it in Glasgow, the Coty Rôtie, in our best French accents. And we've had a lot of joy working with wine casks. But the important thing for us is to make sure that the aroma of the wine doesn't dominate the aroma of the whiskey, and that you still know that you're drinking a Scotch whiskey. I think that's a really important thing to look out for, and also that you're not ending up with a pink whiskey as well. So we need to sort of guard against that. But we've also been doing things with port, so tawny port, ruby port, white port, and get some really lovely results from the white port casts as well. Sort of peaches and real summer fruits from those casks. So, but also different types of oak. So Scottish oak. I was never sure about using Scottish oak, and then we got a batch of really lovely casks, and so we've done an Aberfeldy, finished for a couple of years in Scottish oak casks.
Okay.
And really, oops, I just lost one of my headphones there. A really gentle tannins coming from it, lovely colour, quite a lot of vanilla as well. So I've really enjoyed working with those, and we put some new make spirit in as well. And after about a year, it was really, really dark. And that was Altmore we put in there. So dying to see what it. Sorry?
It's a virgin oak Scotch cask, or?
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
So
That's exciting.
really looking forward to, when that turns 3 and we'll look at it again. Also Mizunara oak, we've been doing a lot of work with that. Again, I'd heard lots of stories about Mizunara that was really hard to work with, that they leaked, but we've had a really good experience with Mizunara. I think we were maybe lucky with the cooperage that we used, but we've had some really lovely results using Mizunara. It's obviously really expensive, the casks, but I think they're really worth every penny. They're just a beautiful, really intensely floral note that we get from the Mizunara casks, and it just seems to work with everything. So that's been really exciting, working with that. So yeah, we're just enjoying exploring casks, exploring our inventory, and not just always looking at the older whiskey, but also the younger whiskey as well.
Okay.
So sub 12-year-old, the Scottish oak Aberfeldy was a 9-year-old. So I don't think people are as worried now about age, provided that it delivers the flavour. And because I would always hate to produce a boring whiskey. You always think a whiskey should be something that you can debate and you can talk about, and that each time you go to it, you get something slightly different. So I like a whiskey that will kind of divide people almost, and so I would almost hate to make a boring whiskey. I think it's really important that you're keeping your whiskey drinkers interested and wondering what's going to come out next.
Yeah. And you seem to have quite a wide range that you can play with as well, from the blends to these single malts, cask finishes. We had a tasting with, and Matt Corner came up and did a tasting in the shop for Aberfeldy, and he took 2 wine finish. I think your Côte de Rome was in there, and it was so interesting. It's very rare we do a kind of vertical distillery tasting, and it was really interesting to see the range that Aberfeldy had. And I think one of the comments we when we were debating the drams was that Aberfeldy stuck to 40%, and I think that was, and Matt defended it, adamantly, saying that was that was decided. And would there be any kind of change there that you would say, well, actually, let's do a 46 or let's do a natural cask strength?
I can't possibly comment, but let's see what happens in the next year or so.
Fair
there
enough.
Might be some movement upwards. But obviously don't tell anybody that. It's just between us, okay?
Okay.
These 4 walls.
There's plans afoot. Because we've done it with Colmore's 46, Craigellachie's 46, Royal Bracknell's 46.
Yeah.
People love 46. We do realise that. With Aberfeldy, it's one of our biggest single malts. So it is quite a big undertaking for us to then suddenly supply less, because 40% obviously allows you to give more. So you're reducing what you can give by going to 46. But
and I guess you run the risk of alienating that people who do like the 40% as well. You keep them on board as well.
The thing is, when you add water to it, you add water to your taste as well. So, you know, it's a bit like when people say, you know, don't add ice to your whiskey. The thing is, when you put it in your mouth, it warms up and you get the flavour released. So, you know, I don't think there's any bad way to present a good whiskey. And you know, people do enjoy it at 40%. But we, you know, just need to be careful that, you know, people understand when it is, and obviously, you know, a single cask as well, that is normally presented at cask strength. You know, you do have to warn people that, you know, this is at cask strength, so don't gulp it down as you would something that's at 40%. But you know, whenever we're doing a cask strength, we always make sure that it's enjoyable at cask strength, because you imagine that if someone's buying it at that strength, that they want to enjoy it like that. So yes, watch this space with Aberfeldy.
That's exciting. Oh, we've got a visitor.
Oh, hello.
Special guest.
Hi, Killian.
Oh.
Tony's just going to go get his milk, so he's going to come in and join us for a little bit. I'll brush your hair. Just talk amongst yourselves.
Oh. I know. Look at that hair.
I know.
Well, I would say he's got his dad's.
Oh.
Yeah, he's got his dad's hair, but he's literally taken his dad's hair because you've got none left.
He's, yeah, he is. The only reason we had the baby was so that I could get his implants.
That beautiful auburn hair. Oh, he's lovely.
Yeah.
Well, we could ask some questions, because the questions have been. Hello, wee man. So Dave was asking if you ever get sent out to the Caribbean. What with Dewars being owned by Bacardi. So do you get regularly sent out to the Caribbean?
Well, I have been to Puerto Rico before, so, and that was really lovely to see the distillery there. Last week I was at Bermuda, which is where Bacardi HQ is based, and it's the building is beautiful. It was built in 1971, and it's a really modern building, but it almost reminds me of something from a Bond film. It's really glamorous, and they've been doing a lot of work inside, so it's just like something out of Homes and Gardens, and they've got this fantastic bar it's like it's from the 1920s. It's called the 1862 bar, and I think everybody in Bermuda tries to get an invitation on a Friday evening, because it is you just feel so glamorous when you're standing in it. So yes, so I've been to Bermuda, and Puerto Rico was quite a long time ago, so I'm probably due another visit out there, I would say.
Definitely.
I would say so.
Would you get your hands on some of those rum casks as well?
Well, we've been using a lot of rum. We've got the Dewars 8 cask series.
Oh, yeah.
And the first one we did was the Caribbean Smooth. And so we had casks sent from Puerto Rico, and at the time we released it, Puerto Rico was just recovering from Hurricane Maria. But all credit to them, they still sent us out the casks, and we're really, really grateful. So it just, rum and whiskey works really well together.
Yeah.
I just get these really lovely sort of ripe banana notes, and the kind of fusel oils coming in there as well. So we enjoyed using those, and we still do use them.
He's loving your stories.
You've got some fun finishes with that range, though, don't you? Because you've got like mezcal, and you've got some port and stuff as well.
Yeah, so that was the mezcal was the illegal mezcal that we used, and we launched that in New York in February 2020, and And so, you know, sadly, it probably didn't take off the way it should have because it was right at the start of the pandemic. But that was a really interesting cast to work with. And Illegal, it's such a kind of vibrant mezcal. Some of the mezcals that we tried, it kind of gave a kind of sweaty note to the whiskey, which I didn't appreciate. But when we tried the Illegal casks, it gave a kind of green note to the whiskey. So it really went well with it. So yeah, we loved doing that. The port was really good. You know, it took on a lot of flavour and a lot of colour very quickly. So we got quite a shock with that and had to kind of pull it back a bit. Another favourite of mine was using Calvados casks. So that's the Dewars French Smooth, and Calvados and whiskey. It just goes so well together. Really enjoyed using those casks. Just these lovely apple flavors, that's sort of stewed apples, and just really, again, a succulence that it brings to the whiskey. So yeah, we have had a lot of fun with those, and most people associate a finish with a single malt. And so it's almost like we're sort of democratizing whiskey by applying it to a blend.
It must be harder with a blend, though, is it? Because like with a single malt, you've got a very distinctive house character, I'm assuming. But with a blend, is it harder to decide what finish would work for it?
Yeah, you would think. I mean, I have a kind of rudimentary way of testing if a cask will work with whiskey, and you know, say it was port, I would get some ruby port, pour it into a glass, empty the glass, pour in the whiskey, and if they seem to work well just doing that, then I reckon we should be okay with putting it in the cask. And I know it sounds really, you know, really simple, but it actually it works.
I love that.
So
That's a good idea.
Oh, simple.
Yeah, it was just kind of, yeah, and it's almost, you know, necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're asked to do things more quickly than we would like.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you do want to make sure that it's going to work, and so we just sometimes have to write, well, let's just try and make sure, and then the sampling on a monthly basis then really gives us a feel of how it's going, because we're there to make whiskey for all over the world, and there's different lead times to get the whiskey to these different parts of the world. So we have to make sure that the whiskey's going to be ready when we want to bottle it and ship it. So there's all these kind of necessities of timing that we have to bear in mind, and and sometimes even get it. So the Mizunara casks come from Japan. So, and that's not a next day delivery. It's weeks and months before it gets to us. So, so we really have to carefully plan what we do when we're releasing Mizunara finished whiskies.
Do you get to nose these casks before they come to you, or are they just arriving to you and under the good faith that they're actually good to go?
Pretty much. The Mizunara casks, where it was almost like a royal visit. Every the casks were individually packed onto a pallet, so each cask had its own pallet, and it was really well wrapped and cling filmed, and it was just a work of art, actually. We almost felt as if we should have had a red carpet down for them arriving.
It's such care and attention
Yeah.
to Japanese, isn't it? It's just everything's just done so meticulously and so with so much respect. It's all about respect to Japanese, isn't it? So I love that.
Oh yes. Yeah, yeah. And there's a way of, sometimes they get these tiny little sort of pinholes in the Mizunara oak, and they can't really do anything to prevent it, but they can repair them. And they sent a little video of, it was like a skewer that they just fitted into the little hole, and then they got this tiny little saw and then just sawed off the top. And it was like one of these, Instagram or TikTok videos that you just feel you have to keep watching. It was just so relaxing to watch this guy repairing this little hole in the cask. Yeah, it was like that. So acupuncture for casks. So yeah, but when casks arrive, especially wine casks, we nose all of them, and if there's any we don't like the look of, we just put a cross against them and send them back. But it really doesn't happen that often, actually. For the amount of casks that we get through, the amount that we reject is minimal, really. So we're very lucky with our suppliers.
Yeah, that's good.
We've got another question from Russell coming in, and obviously new markets are emerging. The biggest one being India is just going crazy just now for whiskey. Is there kind of plans in place for you guys to maybe up production to meet demand, or how is there a contingency there for meeting demand from these new places?
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously it's still a high tariff on whiskey in India, but I think a lot of people are bracing themselves for the day that maybe the tariffs are lifted, because it could be huge. But yeah, I mean, I was in India last year, and yeah, they really love whiskey. And all types of whiskey. They like the younger whiskey, they really like the older whiskey. But it's just so strange drinking whiskey in that heat. But they love it with ice. They love a cocktail as well. So it's such a vibrant market. Really, I love visiting India. And also last year I went to Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
And that was my first visit, and they adore whiskey, and mostly malts, usually older malts. And again, just really, we had these amazing dinners for Altmore. I mean, we talk about the foggy moss and the mist, and they had like dry ice being pumped during dinner, and all this foliage on the table, and it was stunning. So it was a really beautiful food pairings with the whiskey as well. So we had these great chefs that would just have the right food with each expression, and it was really, really special. But generally, when you're working at these things, you don't really get to appreciate the food as much, because you know that you're on and you're going to be doing a tasting at each course. But it's really, and it's lovely to see everyone else really enjoying themselves and really engaged in the food and the whiskey, and that's something that we are really promoting now, is not just drinking whiskey on its own, it's drinking it with food, and really paying attention to what you're drinking and what you're eating, and mingling the flavors together. So
I think people are more after the experience, aren't they?
Yeah, it really is. And I think younger people now coming into whiskey are appreciating, the pairing with food, and like seafood and oysters. We did something a while back with Glendevron and oysters.
Okay.
So it really works well together, and pouring a little bit of the whiskey onto the oyster, and then
A whiskey luge.
taking it. Yes, exactly. So,
I
which I
would
thought,
always
oh
expect,
my goodness, yeah,
I'd always expect oysters to go with like really coastal, really or peaty kind of whiskies, Glenglasser or a Ardbeg or something like that.
Lafroig.
But,
Works well,
yeah,
Lafroig.
yeah, not something
yeah,
unpeated or no. I mean,
A sweet whiskey can
yeah,
go with it. Like it's that sort of opposites attract in the palate, isn't it? So to get the full
yeah,
spectrum,
yeah.
you have to do the
I mean, it
opposite.
makes
yeah,
complete sense. Yeah.
Yeah, like something fruity with something salty is quite nice. But I think whiskey and food I'm like a big advocate of that. I think it's such a good introduction to whiskey, especially if you're new to whiskey. It kind of breaks down that barrier of like, what can I eat? A lot of people get confused by what should I be tasting? Am I meant to taste leather? Am I meant to taste like shiitake mushrooms? What am I meant to taste? But if you have it alongside food, they kind of forget what they're meant to be doing and just start enjoying the flavors if it's done well. Yeah, I think it's a great introduction to whiskey.
yeah, it is really nice, and especially if people aren't used to drinking whiskey, it's nice for them to combine the flavors of good food, maybe with the stronger flavors of the whiskey.
Yeah, exactly.
And whiskey always goes great with pudding as well. Usually anything chocolatey or anything fruity, whiskey's all over it.
Ice cream.
So yeah.
Yeah. Just whiskey and food, can't beat it.
I actually thought, Kat, when you stood up there, you were just away to go and get yourself a cheese board or something.
I could just
A little bit of Stilton.
Yeah, I could do that. But two of my bulbs right, so I went to go and turn on my oven light, but it's made no difference at all. I look so dark. I'm having the worst look
Need one of those beauty lights, the ring things.
like a selfie light. I'm going to insist on just going everywhere with one of those. Like Mariah Carey, just have a lighting expert with me everywhere.
Somebody following you
that'd be nice,
with one of those the silver foils.
Where's my light?
To your face, yeah.
Bring me my lights. Bring me those oysters. So yeah, that's the person I need to be. Talking of food, I don't know if he's gone or not, but Rick, happy Thanksgiving. He was saying that he can't stay for the chat because he's off to do Thanksgiving. But if you're still on, Rick, happy Thanksgiving and to lots of the family, and enjoy your Thanksgiving. He was saying something about I think he was calling you a legend or something. What was he calling you? We were a brilliant presence in the industry. So he was I think he's going to try and catch up with the chat at a later date. So there you go.
Nice.
You should have somebody that follows you around with lighting, and like a fan, or like you could be with all your awards. Somebody that carries all your awards. Also, you could be that person.
Just in a big cabinet following you around with the Stephanie cabinet.
Yeah,
I'm wearing my medals just now. Actually,
I would love if your actual awards were given out like heavyweight sort of boxing medallions. That would be epic.
I know. Someone was talking about the belt, the boxing belt.
Yes.
I think I'll suggest that. Yeah.
Somebody else wants to win it. You have to box to get it off you. You have to win a fight. No.
That's right.
A blend off.
We'll give that some thought. As long as they don't punch our noses, that would be a disaster.
That's
quite important part of the job.
Yeah, nothing on the face.
Yeah. If you weren't a blender, if you weren't in the whiskey industry, and obviously you weren't a boxer, what would you what other interests would you think you could see yourself doing professionally?
Well, I did food science at university, and I actually always imagined that I would be a scientist, perhaps trying to cure, food issues in the world, and I was quite interested in the genetics side of it. But I did discover quite soon that I didn't really enjoy that much working in a lab, because sometimes for me it did become a bit repetitive. So I'm really glad that I discovered the whiskey industry, and that was really through, I worked in the soft drinks industry when I graduated, and it was my old supervisor from Strathclyde Uni said, would you like to come back to uni to work with me studying whiskey? And I was only in my sort of early 20s at the time, had absolutely no notion about whiskey, barely knew how it was made. I just knew it was something that I didn't drink, nor did my friends. It was only old uncles that drank it. But as soon as I started working with it, I thought, this is incredible. It starts off clear. It doesn't taste that great. We put it into casks, and hey presto, something magical happens. And I just knew that I wanted to work with whiskey, and I wanted to get into the industry. And then a few years later, a job came up at Dewars. They had just acquired the Dewars brand, and I just thought I just want to get into the industry, and then I'll work out what I'm going to do when I'm there. And I've been with Dewars now for 25 years.
That's amazing.
So I keep telling people I was 5 when I started, but I think it's now starting to wear thin. People just aren't buying it. Quite depressing.
So he said, it takes 20 years of practice to become the best blender in the world.
Wow.
Yeah. But as I say, it takes a village.
Yeah.
To rear a whiskey. And we've got some great people at Dewars that put, because that's what I always talk about. When we distill whiskey, we don't know whether we're going to see it in a bottle in our lifetime. And I don't know if you heard when we were talking about the very old whiskey that I tried a couple of weeks ago. That was distilled apparently in the 1930s. And I thought that the person who distilled that probably had absolutely no idea that, nearly 200 years later, people would be enjoying what they made then. It was just mind-blowing. And that is part of the beauty of whiskey, is that, you don't know if it's going to be in a bottle in your lifetime, but everybody puts their heart and soul into every drop, and that's really what I love about working in the industry.
I love that as well. Like because I work for a distillery as well, whenever you take out a really old barrel, then it's people that are not the distillery anymore, and the people that have passed away, and you think like that's a bit of them contained like within this liquid that's just been in these walls for forever. I absolutely love that, because like distilleries are kind of part of our social history, and you've just captured all these wee moments in time through distillation and maturation, and it's so magical. And it's a pretty special world to be part of, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. All the things that have been happening in the world, and the whiskey just sits in the cask completely undisturbed by the world events, and just comes out oblivious to what's going on. And it's, you sometimes wish you could just put yourself in a barrel and just sit there for a while. Could be a little business idea, that, couldn't it?
I'm surprised somebody hasn't. Yeah.
It's funny. Maybe better not tell a story in case he's watching. No, I don't think he'll be watching. Our assistant manager at the distillery does he does like Ironman challenges, and he took home a sherry butt for like an ice bath. But I was kind of thinking, you know, if we kept that water and like put it through production, we literally have like a sort of essence of Dave whiskey. Like, I wonder what that would come out like.
Definitely, you're talking about a
Yeah.
whiskey. It gave you kind of was it mezcal? Gave you that sweaty flavour. I can imagine it would taste like that. Yeah.
Give it a go. See what happens.
I'm surprised
I think you might need a marketing expert to put that one out there, mind you. But you never know. Never know.
Yeah, just a sort of you know, a musk. Pop it in a bit of Oloroso, a bit of man musk. It's banging.
Well, let you taste that one first, Kat.
Yeah.
A bit of body to it.
Exactly. Very full-bodied.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I like the way you're thinking, but
yeah, you know, I think we should put a pin in some of these ideas, because I feel like we've kind of, you know, been brainstorming and we've got some good stuff.
This is getting taken up in Stephanie's next meeting. You know, these when you're spitballing these ideas. So let's distill man sweat and see what comes.
yeah. I'm going to suggest that tomorrow. See what kind of reception I get. Showing the door. He's obviously under a lot of stress, Stephanie.
Well, I guess like part of what you do is almost like being prophetic, isn't it? Like trying to figure out what the future of whiskey drinkers is. Like, you know, what's the next big thing? So, you know, yeah, is man cask the next big thing?
Bodily fluids could be the next big thing.
Let's not call it disgorging though when we're talking about the bodily fluids cask.
Or dumping, I think.
Yes. I hope no one's eating their dinner when they're watching this.
I know. I mean, I was getting quite hungry after that Vietnamese food talk, and just not so
not
much
anymore.
That must be a cat touch there on the future, and it must be such a hard job knowing how much do you need to distill that's going to be required in 20 years. And
yeah, I mean, you do often feel as if you need a crystal ball. But
do you ever look back on trends before that? You know, because there's always repeating trends and use that. But
we're looking at that today. About all the forecasts that we've received over a number of years, and you know, occasionally they'll kind of follow the same path, but usually not. Obviously, things happen, recessions. You know, obviously nobody could predict a pandemic. So it is difficult to predict, but all we can go on really is the numbers that we have at the time, and so we are filling barrels and casks in order to you know, looking 50 years in the future, which is incredible when you think about it, and that's why, you know, we need so many casks, we need so many warehouses. And that's why distilleries are, you know, are being built practically all the time in Scotland at the moment, because we do still see that there is demand for Scotch whisky. I think we've lost Mike.
I'm kind of glad it was just his internet ducked out, because there was a grimace on his face for such a long time. I am glad it's
like
just
you and your big slurp of tea.
It was you that thought you were going to have internet problems, but no, it's not. It's me and Mike tonight. So your internet's been pretty good, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm amazed. So obviously my kids have done as they were told and not been on
Yes, they don't do TikTok. They must think Mum's got a pretty cool job, because my kids just think that I drink whiskey all day for my jobs. But yeah, they must be pretty impressed with their job.
Oh, you're back, Mike.
Yes, laptop decided to do an update, kicked me off.
Oh no.
I was saying I was glad it was just the internet, because you were just like grinning manically at the screen for ages, and I was like, is he frozen, or is he just really enjoying it?
I just thought I was being really funny.
Well, wow.
I'm sure it was hilarious.
Yeah, no, we were talking about forecasting the future.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you know, we almost rely on not getting the forecast right, because that means then we've got spirit that we didn't think we would have, that we can then do interesting things with. Because, you know, we all bring out new products all the time. You know, our double range was kind of born out of, you know, having surplus older whiskey.
Okay.
And so in a way we build in a kind of safety stock in order to have that ability to innovate and create new products in the future. Sorry, my ear pods keep leaping out of my ears. I don't know why, just spontaneously jump out. It's quite unnerving. So yeah.
I get that must be quite an important part, is to overestimate what you need, because you if you need it, it's great, it's there. You can't. It's something you can't replicate. It's that time. You can't buy that. You can't just say, "Well, we need another 1,000 casks. We'll fill it." But
Yeah, I mean,
somebody wanting it.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. I mean, we're not time lords. We can't go back in time and, you know, make more of it. You know, so you've got to try and I mean, you don't want to go crazy.
No.
Because you don't want to build warehouses or buy casks for it to sit there indefinitely. So there's always got to be a balance between being optimistic but not going crazy. So that's something that's really important for us to try and strike that balance, because.
And I guess if people 20 years ago were preempting what we're at this now, with this huge demand, probably the biggest demand for whiskey there's ever been, you know, certainly in casks and investments to, you know, people who, you know, guys like yourselves preempted in 20 years, there's going to be this massive demand. You know, you got the cask there to sell. Is that people are screaming for that. So,
yeah. I mean, you know, it is you know, it's something that people invest in now, is whiskey, and you know, there's been a lot of discussion about it, and you know, we just really we just keep going with our plans, and they are fairly stable, but you know, times are tough in the world just now. There's a lot going on, and you know, so people maybe don't quite have the buying power that they had, especially during the pandemic. You know, when you'd have found it yourselves, you were doing tastings, and people were buying on the back of the tastings, and you know, we were really, really busy during that period, and I think everybody was. But you know, I think some economists had predicted a pandemic, but we certainly hadn't, and you know, we had to do some readjustment and to make sure that everybody was working safely. But then, as soon as that was established and everything was put in place, you know, we were working again, and apart from a brief spell of homeschooling, where my children told me that I definitely wasn't a teacher and not to try it. You know, I was basically in work all the time. I
Yeah.
very rarely worked from home, and I discovered that I don't like working from home. I really need the energy of the blending room and an office.
Yeah. I think as well, because if a lot of people got caught into that working at home, they weren't able to switch off, or there was that misbalance of being at home. You're like, well, I'm at home, I'll go. Yeah, telly's so
Yeah,
tempting. Just stick the telly on while I'm working, and you're not fully focused on work. Or the reversal is, well, I'm at home, I've got my laptop here. It's 8 o'clock in the evening. I'll just do this email, and it's very hard. I think you need that distinction, don't you? To that journey to
yeah,
work separate, or that journey
yeah.
home to switch off.
Yeah, I think a lot of people discovered that actually the car journey home or the train journey home was when you kind of decompressed
Yeah,
after your working day, and they weren't getting that time. They were just straight out of their bedroom and then, back into family life again
yeah,
without having that time to, get their heads back in order.
exactly. Yeah, it was a weird time, but I think one of the benefits of it was, somebody like yourself was able to talk to people from around the world, and as a whiskey fan, we got access to guys like yourself, to Rachel Barry, to Billy Walker, who could jump on
Yeah,
a laptop at home rather than
yeah,
fly 500 miles or whatever, and that one tasting is like a 4-day journey,
yeah.
and
Yeah, I mean, I think I reached more people during that spell of virtual tastings than I have in my whole career. Because it was like, hundreds of people would join, and it really, it was incredible, and you got to kind of a sort of instant reaction to your whiskey through the chat boxes, and people would
yeah,
suggest things, and it was I mean, it was tiring because sometimes you'd be up either at midnight if you were doing a US tasting, or up at the crack of dawn if you were doing something with Japan. I remember doing something with Japanese bartenders, and I was up really, really early in the morning. And but it was good. It was good fun.
yeah. Yes,
Once
back
you
at
got,
night, it was fun.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I know. But and getting to grips with, the technology of Zoom or whatever it was, and getting your lighting right and all that kind of stuff. Oh, Cat's back.
He's back.
I'm back. Stupid internet.
What's
Oh,
the biggest market for Dewars?
say
Is
that
the
again. Sorry, Mike.
biggest market for Dewars? Where do you sell the most?
The US is still our biggest market. So that is the one that's still really important to us, for our blends, and also increasingly for our malts as well. Europe is also important. So Western Europe is also a big market for us. And China, I would say, are still recovering after the pandemic, but as you mentioned, India as well.
Mhm.
We're definitely emerging there,
I heard a
and
story
that's
from Matt Spirit Space out 2 years ago. I think we did a tour of Altmore, and
yeah,
that was telling us how there was a sudden spike. I think it was Malaysia, of Altmore. And nobody knew why. The marketing team were like, well, it's nothing to do with us. We haven't focused anything there.
yeah,
But it was because they had the word bucky on the bottle. And a
yeah.
bucky, I'm sure it was Malaysia. It's certainly a Far East country. But a bucky is a nickname for somebody with a lot of money in that
Oh,
country.
really?
So when they see
Oh,
all that, encouraged them to buy it. So I just thought it was brilliant how no marketing team in the world would think of that, and all of a sudden there's this spike
I know. I've never heard that story actually.
Yeah, brilliant.
But actually, Altmore does well in China.
Right.
So I was in Shanghai for Whiskey Ale, and Whiskey Ale, it's a huge whiskey festival in Shanghai. It's normally in August, and it was like watching a Taylor Swift concert going in. It was just all young people, young girls, young guys. Whereas normally a whiskey festival, it's, there's some young people, but it's mostly older men usually. And so it was incredible to see, and it was really heartening. And, I was doing master classes, and they were asking really great, insightful questions about the whiskey, and they just loved Altmore. And I thought that Altmore would be too light for that market, but they just have really embraced it. I think they love the simplicity of it. They love Royal Brackla as well, but I would say Altmore, they've really taken a shine to it. And if you were asked me to predict which of our whiskies would do well in China, I just wouldn't have chosen Altmore. So it's incredible, really. You think you know your whiskey and you think you know markets, but until you actually are in the market, you've no idea.
Yeah.
Um,
It's funny how just a
I
little
think the whiskey
quirk.
drinker is more. No, go on. Sorry, it's the delay again. It's like Eurovision.
No, you crack on. I was just talking about the quirks and things you can't account for, really, that make a big difference.
yeah.
I was gonna say, I think the whiskey drinker is more an old one now, because like the questions you get asked are like, like good questions. You're like, yeah, actually, it's a really intelligent question, and that actually does make a difference. So yeah, good question. But yeah, I think like the people are more like not connoisseur drinkers. 'Cause I don't really like that term, because I think everybody's an expert if you like it, but people are looking for other things. It's not just the classic big Speyside brands. People are looking at other brands, and they want to know more about them, and looking at other kind of releases and things. It's a fun world to be part of just now, because there's that continued interest. It makes our jobs, you're always having to learn. You're always having to be on the ball.
Yeah, I think we definitely can't be complacent that because we make Scotch whisky that sometimes that's going to be the draw. I think we need to make sure that we are always striving for the best whisky that we can possibly make, and keeping our whisky drinkers interested in Scotch whisky. I don't think we can ever take that for granted, because there's lots of good whisky being made all across the world, and people are learning more and more all the time. I think the advantage that we have in Scotland is, our climate, which we all complain about, is a real benefit to us, because we can age whisky for a long, long time, and it doesn't evaporate away to nothing. So that is a real advantage for us, provided that we're putting it into good casks and that it can stand the test of a long maturation period. Obviously that's a big outlay for distilleries to keep whiskey in a cask for that length of time. But we should always be mindful that we have to keep making the best whiskey that we possibly can, because everyone is, every whiskey drinker is precious to us.
Yeah, definitely. All you guys watching, you're all very precious to us.
We love you all.
We do. Wait,
Everyone else.
Well, it reminds me quickly, David, you asked me at the start of the chat, did I get the bottle of whiskey? And I did. Thank you very much. So yeah, thank you for the little sample you gave me at the shop. I did notice your comment, but I just wanted to wait to the end. But I will forget if I don't say it now. So thank you. I did get it. And it's from a distillery that we haven't mentioned tonight. So yeah, thank you for that.
We're going to go through a whole episode without mentioning your distillery.
We did, yeah. See, it's not me that mentioned it at all. But since you're asking, thank you for the sample of Glengarry. Cheers.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I honestly, we could say that there's so many questions that I thought of that, or I thought of before we got on that I haven't asked yet.
I'm the same. I keep writing them down. I'm like, that's a really good point. I'll ask her in a minute. But you just keep telling us like more great stuff. So I'm like,
it's great. So, but we're kind of an hour and 40, and you know we want to keep coming back. It's crazy how when we sit down for a blether and I look at the time and it's like, right, that's 7:10. These are the questions we're going to ask. We're getting in a bit of a flow, and once we get flow, and then all of a sudden it's like, my God, it's 8:45. Where did that time go?
I know.
It's been so interesting. It's been incredible.
It's been a pleasure talking to you both. It really has.
I just hope you keep doing what you're
doing. We're so lucky.
We'll get you back on.
Sorry,
No. It's the delay. We've got a delay between all three of us, so it's awful.
You'd think we were in different continents, wouldn't you? You know, just in different parts of Scotland, in case anybody's watching and think that somebody's in Australia and somebody's in New Zealand and someone's in the US. We're all in Scotland.
Me and Mike are only half an hour away from each other. I don't even understand how this is.
We breed our hamsters stronger in Inverurie than in Huntly. So they run faster.
What I was trying to say was,
That's right.
Whenever you like, you're always welcome on the Blether. So it's an open invitation anytime you want to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. And the next time I'm in Inverurie, I'll pop into the shop.
Please do. And make yourself known. We'd love to come down and chat. I say come down, it's because I normally I'm up the stairs, not come down.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to come down to Glasgow and see the blending room.
Yes, please do. Anytime. Just drop me a line.
I will hold you that.
No, please do.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. Guys at home, thank you for watching. Without you guys watching, actually, no, we would still do it. We'd still do it for you. Without your questions, without you guys watching, we don't so much get the adrenaline as we do when we know that you guys are asking questions and being on. So thanks for joining us. Kat, before we all go, who's on next week?
So next week we have got Magnus, who is from the Manx Distillery, which is the Isle of Man. They're fantastic. They're about to launch their inaugural whiskey, but they literally do everything themselves, from like turning the malt on the floor to like mixing up the yeast to everything. It's all just like really small batch, really hands-on. So, and he's a complete utter whiskey geek, but really nice guy. So he's going to come on next week, which is going to be good fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Look forward to that, guys. Stephanie, keep doing what you're doing, winning awards, and maybe next time we chat, you'll be 6 times winner of that great award.
Let's not jinx it. Okay. But thanks, guys, for inviting me on. It's really been a pleasure, and I hope to see you soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Really is. And Callum summed it up. He's just put a comment on Facebook. Another very interesting blether. A great way to pass a Thursday night with a dram in hand. So
yeah,
there we go.
Perfect.
I just summed it up better myself, Callum. Thanks for that. For our stateside friends, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
cookies and pumpkins and everything else you have at Thanksgiving.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Good night.
Slange. Haven't even got a glass in my hand. A water.
Good night.
Okay.